Okay, I'm going to try to give you a somewhat definitive guide here on feeding heritage turkeys. And by the way, this is quite a bit different than feeding meat turkeys, the broad-breasted meat turkeys. I'm not going to get into that, but there are some important differences. So, one of the main things with feeding heritage turkeys is that you're going to give them free choice. They're going to be able to eat all day long. You can't really do that with meat turkeys. You give them a set amount per day, I think. But for the heritage turkeys, they always should have food available. I mix the types of food depending on the time of the year. So during the spring and summer, when they're laying, they don't need as much protein. It's warmer, etc. Um, their protein level is going to end up being around 18.5%. So what I do is I mix. Well, let me get into this first. So this stuff from Costco, this layer, it's a 16% organic layer. This next one from Modesto Milling, actually this one, it's a 22% organic chick starter and broiler grower. And then the last one here it's kind of a whole grain, it's organic, a whole grain layer. It ends up being an 18% protein, and it has, you can see, it's got these compressed pellets which have like alfalfa and different stuff, and it's got seeds, all kinds of like sunflower seeds, wheat, um, little bird seed type stuff, all kinds of stuff. They love that actually. And so what I do during the spring and summer is I do two parts this, and one part this, and I just put it in a big tub and mix it up. I just kind of layer it. I put my two. I use like a pitcher. I put two buckets of that and just kind of layer it, and then I just reach in with gloves on and mix it all up. Here's what it ends up looking like. You don't want to put too many treats and snacks and goodies in the food because then they'll just go for that. So that's one of the reasons I only put one scoop of this per, two and two of these. So if you put too much of the good stuff, that's all they'll want to eat. So anyway, it's easy to spoil heritage turkeys. So that's what I do during the spring and summer. Now, during the fall and winter when they need more protein, I would actually eliminate this, and I just pretty much feed like three parts of this with one part of this. So their protein level ends up being going from 18.5% to more like 21% or something. And they do a little better, 21 and a half, whatever it ends up being. But they do a little better with more protein in the winter. Now, they do get mealworms and snacks, and that raises their protein. I do let them free range, but I'll get into that. So that's not just the only protein they get. So now moving on to the poults. This here, all this is poult food, not that, but the other stuff is poult food. So I've taken the turkey starter, which Modesto Milling, their crumble size is quite large. It's a little big. Now, ideally, you're going to want to use your 28% turkey starter through the first 4 months of their life. And so the larger crumble size is okay, in the sense that when they start to get bigger, they don't want to eat mash and powder. But if you missed it, by the way, turkey crumble can come, or chick starter too. It can come in a mash, which is almost like a powder. It can come in a small crumble, a medium crumble, or a very large crumble, such as that, which is almost like a pellet. So there are different sizes that you have to be aware of. Now, I buy the Modesto Milling, and I've separated these out. Now, this is the largest pellet size that's in there. This is the medium. This is actually all from one feed. So this is kind of a mix, and I end up separating them out. So when your babies are first hatched, like the first couple days, you can use a fine mash like this, only for maybe the first 2 days or so. And then you're going to need to kind of increase it. This is kind of a standard mash, I would say. They can't eat powder for more than the first couple days. So most of the poults, for the most part, are going to need something in a medium crumble size like that. And what I do to accomplish that in this brand, now ideally you would just buy a brand that was the right size. But what I've done is I've taken piece of 1/4 inch hardware cloth, folded it over on itself to make about an 1/8 inch screen. So we could use some more light in here, huh? An 1/8 inch screen size, which you could probably buy. And now this is the lid from a this is actually the lid from a 16 by 24 inch chick brooder plate. I like to improvise. You can buy, I buy a lot of stuff too, but anyway, so all I do is I put my starter in here. I put my starter in here. I put a hand on both sides and I shake it, and it comes through. Perfect size for poults that are, you know, maybe 2 weeks old through really the whole time. I mean, they don't ever need that larger crumble size. So from about 2 weeks on, this is the perfect size for them. And like I said, I'll give them this for the first maybe 2 days, and I'll give them this mash, this standard mash, for about the first 2 weeks. And then they can just, 2 to 3 weeks. Anyway, then they can go to this, and they're set. Now, I do feed turkeys mealworms as a snack at night, but the last thing you ever want to do is get them spoiled on mealworms. Mealworms are crack. They are absolute crack for chickens and turkeys. Once they taste it, they will never want to eat their food again. So you have to be very careful with snacks. And what I do is I grind the mealworms up into a fine, not fine powder, but a kind of a coarse powder like this, and I mix it in with the crumble. I mix it in, and it makes it taste better to them, and it's more of an incentive to eat it. So ideally, people would have their turkeys. What most people do is they just buy a group of turkeys. They raise them all at this. They're all the same age. They raise them up, so your feed is perfectly, adjusted for their stage of life, and then they slaughter them all, and they start again next year. Now, my problem is that I have a bunch of turkeys of different ages all in the same yard, and so when I feed the mealworms, the little babies get it, and then they don't really want their food anymore. That's why it's so important to put the ground mealworms in with their food, so it tastes like mealworms. It's more of an incentive for them to eat it. If you are going to give mealworms, you put it in the food dish. You never give this separately. You mix it into the food so that they have to hunt through the food to get it. If you just throw this on the ground or give it in a separate dish, they'll never touch their food dish again, guaranteed. So anyway, I think that mostly covers it. To grind, to get the fine and the standard mash, I do grind. I take what's left of this really coarse pellet that I separated out, that the poults can't even eat. I grind it, and the finest stuff comes out like that. The standard stuff comes out like that. And I would highly recommend this type of coffee grinder. It's a Chefman coffee grinder available on Amazon. This is a removable cup, very large. It's powerful. It's got a very robust button here. These things last forever. They're just amazing. I would highly recommend this. It's only like $23. So anyway, that's what I do. I just grind the stuff and mix it. So once again, I'm going to put about 1.5 cups of ground mealworms in a 1-gallon container of prepared larger crumble. I'm going to put about 1.5 cups and shake it up, and that's going to be my poult food for up to 4 months. Now, I do transition. If I was just raising one flock of food, I would start with the 28%, and then after they reach about 4 months, I would start to transition them. So at that point, I would start mixing the 22 in with the 28, and every week you just mix more and more and more until they're on. By that time, your poults, it's going to be going into winter, and your poults are going to be, 6-8 months old by the time the winter hits. So by that time, you can have them kind of on the 22%. But after 4 months, I slowly start to phase it in. I'll put 1 scoop, of that per 4 parts of the 28, and just every week I increase it a little bit. And so over the course of about 2 months, I'll have transitioned them onto the 22. So I know this is a long video, but I hope it's been informative. Okay, so to conclude, as evidenced by all the happy little trills here,
You can see that they like this kind of food very, very much.